Hello everyone and welcome to this week's PTC Talks webinar, where we are excited today by having Arpita Chari, who is the Ph.D. candidate at the Department of Industrial and Materials Science at the Chalmers University of Technology. And she will have a session on Industry 4.0 technologies for resilient and sustainable manufacturing. But first, a quick introduction about myself. And my name is Torbjörn Peterson, and I'm the Alliance Manager for PTC in the Nordics. And we are running these webinars every week on Fridays at the same time, where we invite customers and partners for some inspiration on digital transformation to see what is possible and how to make things happen. And all the past webinars have also been recorded and are to be found on the registration site. What is also new as of this week is that we have now expanded this webinar to more geos. So special welcome to all of you who are here for the first time. And the agenda for today is first a quick overview of PTC by my colleague Carl from the Customer Success team. Then Arpita will start by introducing herself, touch base on a few challenges, how to address these, and then explain some of her research outcomes. And at the end, we are also having a Q&A session, so please keep your questions to the end. So now over to you, Carl. And you are muted, like I see still.
Yep, thank you, Torbjörn. So PTC is an international company in Boston. We are developing software mainly for manufacturing companies since 1985. We offer tools for digital transformation, such as CAD for design, PLM for managing data, IoT to connect products and manufacturing operations, and augmented reality to visualize and interact with the digital thread. So to you, Arpita.
Thank you, Torbjörn and Carl, for inviting me, for giving this talk on Industry 4.0 technologies for resilient and sustainable manufacturing. So my name is Arpita Chari, and I am from the Sustainable and Virtual Production Group in the Division of Production Systems here at Chalmers University in Gothenburg, Sweden. And I'm very happy to be here to give this talk. So for today's agenda, I will take you through the following. I'll introduce myself briefly, give you a little motivation of my research and why I started it, give you an idea of how I've designed my research, what kind of data I've collected, and then give you an overview on the different projects that I'm part of currently, take you through some of my preliminary results because I'm a fourth-year PhD student and I still have 2 years to go. And finally, I will end with some conclusions and the next steps in my research. Yes, so about me, I have a master's in material science and engineering that I received from Texas A&M University in the US. It was a while ago. And then I have about 5 years work experience as a business analyst. I worked in Singapore for a while and then worked in a research field with medical patents in India. And then I joined the PhD program here at Chalmers in 2018 and received my licentiate degree, which is the halfway mark of our PhD studies last year. So giving you a little bit of motivation of my current work to understand what the different stressors are. So we currently live in what we call the Anthropocene era or the epoch, where we as humans are responsible for grand sustainability challenges such as climate change and resource scarcity, where we're consuming resources faster than they can be replenished in nature. And the reality we see today is that we're destroying this balance in nature, and what is happening is manufacturing industries are also playing a huge role in this. We see that production is contributing to almost a fifth of global carbon emissions. So it's urgent that industries do something about it. Industries are also being pressured to change at unprecedented rates by global policies such as EU's Green Deal, the Paris Agreement, UN SDGs, and so on. We know that the European Green Deal has a set of policies which want European industries to transform to a more climate neutral and resource efficient economy by 2050. So this is sort of a good North Star to have, with an action plan. We've also seen impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, which we're still seeing today. This has sort of exposed weaknesses in industrial supply chains, It's made them vulnerable and accelerated sort of a digital transformation that we're seeing. It's also increasing the concept of resilience. It's bringing that into focus. We all know we are here today with a digitalization background. We all know what Industry 4.0 is. But for those who don't know what it is, it's an expression that's used, or rather it was used by the German government early in 2011. To advance German manufacturing, and it was built on the digital revolution of the past, of the 20th century. So disruptive technologies in Industry 4.0 have been, it's anticipated to transform industrial operations and produce positive sustainability implications. And we're seeing an increasing number of studies over the past decade in this area. So that's where I come in. The vision of my research is to build long-term sustainable competitive advantage, and I want industries to be resilient, and of course, they're going to be smart factories. I have collected data from different sources and different methods through interviews. We've done more than 20 to 25 interviews so far. We've had multiple surveys. We've done workshops and expert panel studies. I've also had data collected from a review of literature. So what the goal of my research is that I want to find a relationship between resilience and sustainability in this Industry 4.0 era. And I also want to understand how we can leverage the use of digitalization from this era to improve industry's ability to respond to disruptions and become more resilient. So these are some of the projects that I'm currently part of. You can see two of them are EU funded. So it's funded by Horizon 2020, which are the READY project and stand for EU. And then we have a Digital Stambanan, which is a project here in Sweden, funded by Vinnova. I know this slide is a bit wordy, so I have left links under if you want more information. But with the READY project, what we are doing from Chalmers is to build a resilient engineering framework in order for Operator 5.0, because we talk of skills and human capabilities as being the core of industry or digital 4.0 transformation. So with this framework, we are trying to have use cases in the automotive, aerospace, and machine tool manufacturing domains. With Digital Stambanan, we are trying to showcase how digital platforms can be used to build resilient and sustainable value chains. And specifically, I'm trying to look at how we can model value creation using digital platforms in a steel manufacturing value chain. With Stand for EU, we're trying to understand different obstacles and contribution of manufacturing standards, specifically in 4 different focus areas. And this is trying to understand it specifically within research and innovation projects. All the information is in the links, and if you need additional, you can come back to me. We've also had several collaborations in the past with University of Cambridge, ISQ, which is a research institute in Portugal, Lund University, and KTH. And along with Production 2030, we've had several fruitful outcomes. Production 2030 is a strategic research and innovation program in Sweden. I will talk about this a little later. So as you can see on the right, we have been able to disseminate results on different platforms like journals, conferences, popular science talks, and we've been able to gain a lot of visibility in this area. So far in my research, I've had some interesting results. What I'm looking at is, of course, trying to understand how we can build manufacturing resilience. So that's the core of my research. And of course, this is to understand the different risks that manufacturing industries face today, the corresponding disruptions that take place, and how implementing Industry 4.0 technologies can actually help us build certain capabilities and have those different resilience strategies so that this implements sustainability, impacts sustainability in a good way. So through a literature study, I was first able to identify some of the Industry 4.0 technologies that can promote circular economy practices. As we know, circular economy is rooted in industrial ecology, and it is grounded in a closed loop model. And it steers away from the traditional model, linear model of take, make, waste that we have seen a lot in the past. Circular systems help minimize waste, keep resources in service longer, and it helps retain their value as well. So what I saw was big data is one example. It helps address a barrier that is created by lack of data regarding waste streams. Internet of Things helps monitor processes that can support circular practices because it uses data from different devices. With cloud manufacturing, we saw that it helps create a shared network of resources and capabilities that are offered as services. So platform as a service or other services like that. Simulations also helped improve confidence in synergy efforts of industries, which can help them prepare for the future if there are any market fluctuations and so on. So these are just some of the examples found from literature. After that theoretical understanding, I wanted to do a study to understand how these technologies are actually being implemented in Swedish manufacturing companies today. So within a project in Production 2030's consortium, we surveyed 113 projects and did 8 follow-up interviews. And what we saw was that from the 78 responses that we received, we found that 65% of projects actually implement Industry 4.0 technologies specifically to derive sustainability benefits. And this is very promising because if you see on the left within the focus areas of Production 2030's projects, there's a large percentage of projects that actually focus on sustainability. So implementing Industry 4.0 technologies to derive those benefits is very promising to see. And you can see here that virtual development tools like AR and VR are implemented to a large extent. Sensors, of course, are almost always implemented with another technology here. So that was not taken separately. Here you can see from some of our results the different Industry 4.0 technologies, the opportunities that it gives us in terms of flexibility or process efficiency and so on, and the corresponding sustainability or circular economy benefits. The data we have here in the X's are from literature, and the little zeros you find here are all the data we could get from the different projects. So some of the surprising results we also see is that a lot of digital technologies are promising to improve different operations in different ways, which we previously did not find from literature. So I think there's a good way forward for manufacturing industries. So far from literature, we saw that implementation of Industry 4.0 can provide opportunities for sustainability, but we also see that it can help build resilience for sustainability. So the same study we conducted, we were able to understand how Industry 4.0 technologies can provide those opportunities to build resilience factors or strategies and positively impact sustainability. So one of the first ones we found was that there were more efficient operations in terms of resources, time, and energy. And operational efficiency is in terms of resilience, it's called robustness. The second we found was that new agile forms of data collection was possible with the implementation of Industry 4.0, and this resulted in reduced waste and scrap in production. And agility, as we know, is a resilience aspect that a lot of industries don't know that they're doing already. Then we saw that because of this increased availability of data, we found that there was an increased visibility in production logistics and because of the transparent and visible information. And this led to higher circularity of materials and products. And when we talk of transparency and visibility in flows, we call it a resourcefulness aspect of resilience. Then we saw that implementation of simulation models, virtual prototypes, replaced conducting sort of physical tests at the production site. And it was used to assess the potential of business models such as product service systems. And so it reduces the risk of implementation in real market conditions and increases chances towards circular economy transition. And this sort of business model innovation is a way of improving adaptability, which is a resilience factor. And lastly, we found that IoT and CPS, which is cyber physical systems, could enhance the flexibility in manufacturing operations. which allowed for better machine setups, seamless adaptation to new circumstances. And this, of course, we know if there is a flexibility, then it enhances worker conditions. So sustainability benefits here, we found environmental and social aspects only, because it is a given that economic aspects of sustainability is something that businesses absolutely want to have as a base. So we try to focus our study on the environmental and social aspects. And lastly, we found that there are certain capabilities, dynamic capabilities that industries need to develop. Why we say dynamic is because these capabilities are something industries need to have or develop because of constantly or dynamically changing environments that they're part of. So just to summarize some of the capabilities, we found communication, organizational, technological aspects, and collaborative capabilities to be very important in this dual transition that we talk about of sustainability and digital transformation. So these capabilities are very vital for industries to develop and have. So some of the key takeaways from my research so far, I found that there are a lot of systemic challenges that industries need to be aware of before they are able to actually implement Industry 4.0 technologies in any way to build resilience or sustainability. Some of them we found were funding aspects. So this is still a bottleneck for a lot of industries. They need to have the support from top level management to be able to invest in these resources. There are, of course, like I mentioned before, a lot of regulations and policies. And then there's also changing customer demand. So there's a customer influence here with customization or constantly changing dynamic environments where the customer needs to adapt and change. This poses a challenge to industries. We also have digital maturity that a lot of us are now trying to assess, which tells us what kind of capabilities industries have in order to actually implement these technologies. Do they have this readiness? Do they have a maturity to implement, or even after they've implemented, what kind of maturity do they have in order to progress further in their digital transformation process? And of course, we also found that there is a difference in quality of data between different partners, for instance, in a value chain, and this can pose to be a challenge when you talk of a data exchange or collaboration between different partners in a value chain. So see, these were some of the systemic challenges that we found. The second and actually very important aspect is actually understanding what Industry 4.0 means, because a lot of companies that we interviewed didn't have, of course, had an idea what Industry 4.0 meant, but they were confused about, is it IoT, is it CPS? These terms are also quite interchangeable in literature, but we also see that it is quite relevant to understand as concepts even in industries. So although it is getting a little better, we find that it is still something that they are not completely clear about. So this understanding of Industry 4.0 along with what is circular economy is something that is unknown. With resilience, of course, this is something we're doing quite recently. And what we're finding is that a lot of companies perhaps have a lot of resilience aspects already within their companies, but they don't necessarily have the mindset of thinking about it as resilience or risk management. Some companies, if they have risk management strategies, they think that they're resilient, but this may not always be the case. And other industries that we've interviewed don't have specific risk management departments per se. So this is something we're slowly trying to get industries to be aware because it is a very urgent, something that's very urgent that needs to be put on their agenda. And of course, we found that Industry 4.0 is an enabler for resilience and sustainable manufacturing. I've given several examples from before, so I think it is very promising, and it is definitely something all industries are vying to implement. And because of this understanding of resilience, or how can we actually build resilience by implementing Industry 4.0, is something that we're seeing in reality is still a challenge, because analyzing what resilience is, how far they've come into building resilience, what is resilience, these are aspects that are still quite new, and this is something we're trying to explore. So within the context of Industry 4.0, of course, in my research, the next steps I am going to do is to build my resilience model, where I want to have this holistic understanding of what are the different types of risks that impact different types of organizations, what are their corresponding disruptions, do industries have specific resilience capabilities or strategies that they need to develop, how does this relate to sustainability. So a lot of questions, a lot of different concepts that we want to find relationships with. Second, we are going to send out a large-scale survey to manufacturing companies at the beginning of next year. So this should give us more input into the resilience model. And I have 3 planned publications in the coming 2 years. If there is anything that I have mentioned above that is interesting and you would like to collaborate, let me know. Just to summarize what I have said so far, we've seen that there have been several disruptive events, and this has shown that industries are being forced to kind of think about building resilience and sustainability in their supply chains and operations. So preparing and really investing for future hypotheticals can pay off over time. This long-term thinking is important because it can not only help minimize losses, but also improve digital capabilities and strengthen industrial ecosystems. So rather thinking of it as really trade-offs between resilience, sustainability, what do we do? Just trying to think of this rebalancing might help industries deliver a win-win situation for all. So yeah, that was what I wanted to discuss in my work. I know it was a lot in the 20 minutes, so hopefully you could take away something. If you feel like you have more questions or you're interested in collaborating or discussing anything I just presented, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to take questions. And yeah, thank you very much for listening.
Thanks a lot, Arpita, for a fantastic overview of this extremely hot topic. So as I said, I'm now over to the Q&A session. So raise your hand and up with the questions you might have here to Arpita. Otherwise, I have one first question actually to go, and I heard, you talked a lot about, the digital maturity. So, how is actually, the digital maturity of manufacturing companies being assessed in the products that you are actually part of?
Yeah, thank you, Torbjörn. So one of the projects that I'm doing now with Digital Stambanan, we have 3 use cases in a steel manufacturing value chain. And what we're trying to do is use the ACATEC model. If you're aware of the Industry 4.0 Maturity Index, it's been quite well defined, and a lot of companies are aware of how it works and are getting more and more interested in understanding how to use the tool, because it gives them an overview of capabilities in 4 focus areas, where it's not just the technological capability where they need to implement and develop. It's more about developing competencies in larger or broader focus areas. So and doing this sort of assessment gives them an insight into the different challenges and opportunities of digital transformation. So the tool has been very helpful, and a lot of my colleagues have used it for several projects before, and we are using it now. So very insightful, and a lot of promising feedback from the companies we're assessing.
Yeah. Thank you, Arpita. Thank you. Could you also elaborate a little bit on to what extent are companies willing to invest formally in technologies to aid in the sustainability and silent production?
That's a good question too. So if you remember some of the results I was showing from before, it is promising. Now we're seeing less. Greenwashing is a concept that has been around for quite some time, and we are actively as researchers trying to move away from that. But we are seeing companies more and more wanting to willingly do it, not only because it's something that they're getting pressure from regulations or policies, but something that they want to really actively do as companies, because it's the right thing to do. We talk of climate resilience, we talk of environmental implications because of technology use. So this is something that industries are slowly investing in. Even when we have project proposals and where companies are being part of to get funding, they are actively thinking of which UN Sustainable Development Goal their project actually has an impact on. So I think this is something that they're thinking about even before a project starts. So it's not something that they do as a reactive way. So there is a lot of traction and a lot of interest from companies to do it. I think we're seeing an increase for sure.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have one question from Stephen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi.
Hello.
I was just wondering, supply chain disruption is over the last few years has been a major feature. So are you looking at resilience outside of the individual factory and across the, so digital sharing and digital collaboration real time across the supply chain would be an interesting thing.
Yeah. That's super relevant question, because right now with this project that I was just mentioning with the steel manufacturing value chain, what we have done so far is to assess the digital maturity of each of these individual companies. And now what we're going to do is to try and connect the companies, try and understand what the red thread is for data sharing capabilities, because the maturity of one company may not be similar to another. And so how do we sort of manage those expectations of what is the extent to which we can share data among the value chain partners so we can create value. I think value creation is something that's very undervalued. I think it's ironical, but it's something that industries need to think more about, and that's something we are doing in this project. So definitely thinking about if one of the companies has a certain type of disruption, how does this impact another in the value chain? What are the dependencies? What capabilities do I need to develop across companies in the value chain? Yes, definitely. This is something we're doing now. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One thing I thought was quite useful, instead of everybody essentially showing everybody else what they've got digitally, just sharing machine learning predictions of the likely delivery time, the likely yield, the likely quality levels. These things would help people further up or down the chain to react without everyone having to show everybody their private data.
Absolutely. Well, just with one example, we're trying to use a platform by Chaintraced. It's a very intuitive tool to understand CO2 emissions. And I think I can put the link if someone is interested, or you could ask me or email me about it. And this is these sort of digital platforms help us really understand, by sharing a certain type of data, can we not only have CO2 visualization and think of climate resilience, but can we also improve product quality data? Can we also have a way to share just the right type of information at the right time? We're also trying to do it in real time, like you also mentioned. That's something we're exploring in the next step, how we can share data, not all the data, but the data that's relevant in real time to showcase these kind of emissions or for quality improvement processes. So I think that's the next step.
Yeah, it's cool. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another question also from Vesa. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Chari. It was very interesting presentation, but the amount of data in manufacturing environment, also in supply chain, as we discussed earlier, is increasing dramatically. And the technology, what normally it's just a tool to manage the data. And that's why this architecture, like RAMI architecture, Industry 4.0, is a type of data-based business architecture. So that if there is a new source of data, you can use it as quickly as possible in your decision management and managing by data. And we have a couple of type of case studies we have analyzed, and it's really impossible for most of the companies to understand the new data source and place it in your decision management.
Yeah. I agree. What we are in the project that I mentioned, which is the EU-funded project, which is ready, we're looking at different. We're looking at data-driven capabilities and strategies for resilience, of course, but within data lakes, and we're looking at data marketplaces. What can we use a RAMI 4.0 architecture in actually sort of building this active model to build resilience? So I think the type of data and how you actually exchange the data across the different partners or even inside the factory it is a challenge. It is a huge it's a relevant aspect to consider for sure, and what to implement when, of course. This is something we need to look into, but I'm not sure if this. I know it's a great discussion point, but I don't know if I was able to.
Yeah, thank you. So data is the fire.
Yeah,
you have to use it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's we have a lot of big data or clean data or uncleansed data or whatever, but it's how we use it and how much of it is actually relevant. It is definitely important.
Thank you, Arpita. Time is actually unfortunately running out, friends. So many thanks everyone for joining this webinar, and a special thanks, of course, to you, Arpita. So with that, I wish you all a fantastic weekend and hope to see you again next week. So take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.